Hi, my name is Lee, and in this series of videos I'm going to discuss a range of topics to help you build better, more resilient bots for your automation projects. In this first video, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of different approaches to automation. So let's get started. Okay, so in automating an application, this is the order in which I would consider approaches to building that automation. Firstly, if the application I'm going to automate has a set of APIs, that would be the way I'd go. Using the APIs is much faster. You get a very clear success or fail outcome when you submit data. You tend to get a message which also tells you why it failed, which helps you improve the bot on an ongoing basis. And you don't encounter any UI problems. And by that I mean having to build extra logic to check for certain pop-ups or whether certain windows have opened, to deal with delays in things opening, or even whether subsequent versions of the software might have changed the user interface and therefore broken your bot logic. All of those problems go away when you automate through the APIs. One of the downsides here is that they can be a little bit complex to learn, particularly starting on a new API. Documentation is not always so great, and you are limited to the particular functions that have been exposed by that platform through the APIs. Here I am in Automation Anywhere in the bot building interface, and the most common API you're likely to run into is a REST-based API. There is all the methods here that you can use to interact with those. We also have capabilities here to do with SOAP web services, and if you need to create some sort of ability to interact with a certain API that's not here in the list of options, then there's a range of scripting options that you can use. Now, in the absence of any APIs, the next thing I would look for is, are there any native functions in the automation platform for the application that I want to automate? An example is Excel. It is the most commonly automated application, and most automation platforms have specific set of functions to deal with Excel. Automation Anywhere includes other things like email, Office 365, SAP, and many, many more. Now, these native packages have specialized functions that enable you to do things in much less steps. That makes them simple and therefore more reliable when building your automations. So look for any native functions. The only downside of this sort of approach is only certain applications are handled by these, and within those particular packages of actions, there's a limited number of functions that are available. So it depends on the particular application you're looking to automate. Now, if you don't see the application that you're looking for within the menu in Automation Anywhere, one thing you can do is jump out to our bot store here and have a look at the capabilities out here. So let's say I wanted to do some automation of AWS and I don't see AWS native capabilities in there. I can come here, do a quick search, and I see we have particular packages here which I can download and plug into the Automation Anywhere platform to deliver those native capabilities as though they were part of the platform. Now, coming a very close third and fourth are these two options here. So if there are no native functions for the application, I would then look to using a combination of keyboard shortcuts and object-based automation. Now, by keyboard shortcuts I mean simple things like Control-N to create a new document in a Windows application, Control A to select all objects, and then Control-C, Control-V to copy and paste. These sorts of things are really simple. They don't rely on having to click on a menu option and then wait for the drop down and then click on the subsequent drop down. So in that sense they're very reliable to use for those particular functions. That leads me to the cons. There are limited functions available because you only have access to the keyboard shortcuts that are available in the application. Then you would use object-based automation. Now, object-based automation is very, very flexible. What it effectively does is work with the application the way a human would. It recognizes the objects within the window, such as text boxes, buttons, other sorts of controls, and then allows you to assign actions to those, such as writing text to a text box or clicking on a button, for instance. They require a little bit more configuration to set up, and in a later video I'm going to talk about specific configurations that can help you make object-based automation a lot more resilient to change. As with most user interface based automation, there are potential UI problems you need to account for. So if you're clicking on a menu, sometimes there's a little delay before you can click on the subsequent drop down menu. Web-based automations might have certain screens that take a while to open after you click on a menu option because of a slow internet connection. Windows applications can sometimes spawn pop-ups that you weren't allowing for in your automation. So these are the things to allow for in your automation logic. Now, not every application is going to be easily able to be worked with in terms of recognizing the objects in the interface, and this is where you might need to then fall back onto things like AI sense and image recognition. Now, these both work by taking a picture of the window you're looking to automate, sending it into some sort of recognition algorithm to find an object, and then allowing you to implement an action like a click or something on that object. Image recognition is a little bit more limited. You're looking for one particular image in that window, like a button or an icon, and then once it's discovered, you have the option, well, very limited options of, say, clicking on it, for example. AI Sense is a really powerful capability which is unique to the Automation Anywhere platform. It actually takes the window and sends it to a machine learning algorithm to detect all of the user interactable components within that image, and then it allows you to interact with those as though they were fully recognized, like in object-based automation. So it can be quite powerful. Both can be a little bit slower to work with because of the fact that you're using that recognition algorithm, and there's a little bit more configuration involved to get this working, and not every application looks the same. So if you're feeding that UI into the AI sense algorithm and it's not recognizing those objects, sometimes there might be certain applications that are still not easy to automate in this way. This brings us down to the next option you can try and use, keyboard actions. Now, what I'm talking about here is not keyboard shortcuts, but where you're, say, having to tab through all of the fields in order to get to a point where you need to type in the text, for instance. This is sort of getting into the last resort actions. They are dependent on a static user interface and layout. As you can imagine, if a new version of that software comes out and it introduces some new fields, then the same amount of tabs is not going to get you through to the same point in the application. So these sort of actions can be a little bit of a brittle approach to doing automation. And this brings me to the last option here, mouse actions, or indeed any particular action which is dependent on the resolution. This is an approach of last resort, I guess, because it depends both on a static resolution and also a static UI layout. Mouse actions are going to click at a particular XY coordinate in the window. So if that window changes because of perhaps a new version of the software, or if you change the resolution of the devices between the machine you're building the bot logic on and running the bot logic on, that will break the automation. So if there's any other way you can do things, I would do that before getting down to these last particular courses of action. So that brings me to the end of this video. In the next one, we'll look more deeply at object-based automation, which is the most widely used automation approach. We'll discuss how you can configure these actions so your automation is more resilient. And if you're interested in following this series, then please subscribe to my channel and you'll be notified when the next video is available. Thank you for watching.